Two kids, Mia and Jake, both turned 25 this year. They work similar jobs, make similar money, and both decide on the exact same week to start saving for retirement. Mia invests $200 a month, starting right now, for exactly 10 years, and then she stops completely, never adds another dollar again. Jake waits. He parties for 10 years, doesn't save a cent. And then at 35, he starts investing the same $200 a month, and he keeps doing it every single month for the next 30 years straight. So Jake puts in money for 3 times as long as Mia, way more total months of saving, way more total dollars out of his own pocket.
Here's the part that sounds like a typo. By the time they both turn 65, Mia still ends up with more money than Jake. Not close. More. Even though she stopped contributing decades earlier, and he never stopped at all.
If that sounds impossible, good, because that confusion is exactly why we're making this video. By the end of the next 15 minutes, you're going to understand exactly why Mia wins. And it's not luck. It's not some secret stock pick. It's one specific idea called compound interest. And once you actually get it, on a gut level, you'll never think about saving money the same way again. Stick around, because we're going to explain this so simply that a 10-year-old could follow every single step.
Let's kill the boring textbook definition first. Compound interest is not interest on interest, even though that's technically true, because that phrase means nothing to anybody the first time they hear it. Here's the real way to think about it. Imagine you're at the top of a snowy hill with a tiny snowball. You start rolling it downhill. As it rolls, snow sticks to it, so it gets a little bigger. But here's the key part. Because it's bigger now, even more snow sticks to it on the next roll. And because it's bigger after that roll, even more sticks the roll after that. The snowball isn't just getting bigger by the same amount every time. It's getting bigger by a bigger amount every single time, because it's already bigger than it was before. That's it. That's the whole idea. Money can do the exact same thing snow does on a hill, if you give it enough distance to roll. Here's what that looks like with actual numbers, using round, easy amounts so you can follow along in your head. Say you put $100 into an account that grows by 10% every year, just to keep the math simple. After year 1, you don't have $110 sitting there waiting to be spent. You now have a new snowball, a bigger one, worth $110. In year 2, that 10% growth doesn't apply to your original $100 anymore. It applies to the whole $110. So you don't gain another $10, you gain $11. Doesn't sound like much, right? But now you've got a $121 snowball rolling into year 3. So that year, you gain $12.10. Not 11, not 10. Every single year, the amount you're gaining gets a little bit bigger because the snowball rolling downhill is a little bit bigger every single time.
Now, here's where it gets genuinely wild. And this is the part most people never actually see with their own eyes. If you let that same snowball keep rolling for 30 years instead of 3, your original $100 doesn't turn into $400 or even $800. It turns into over $1,700 from $100, untouched, just left alone to roll. The growth in the last few years of that 30-year stretch is bigger by itself than your entire original investment. That's not a typo either. That's what a snowball looks like after it's been rolling downhill for a really, really long time.
So let's go back to Mia and Jake for a second, because now you can actually see why she wins. Mia's snowball started rolling at 25. For 10 years, she kept adding a little more snow to it every month. Then she walked away and let it roll completely on its own for the next 30 years. Jake's snowball didn't even start rolling until he was 35, 10 years after Mia's did. And even though he kept feeding his snowball money for 3 times as long as she did, his snowball simply didn't get the same number of years rolling downhill. Mia's snowball had 30 extra years of rolling that Jake's never got, and those 30 early years turned out to matter more than all of Jake's extra deposits combined.
That's the whole secret. And it's not really a secret at all. Time spent rolling matters more than how much snow you add.
Okay, quick pause, because if that idea just clicked for you, if you finally get why starting early beats almost everything else, that's exactly the kind of thing we make videos about every single week here on Compound Economy. So, if you want more of this, the kind of explanation that actually makes money stuff make sense, go ahead and hit subscribe right now before we keep going. Because trust me, the next part is even more surprising than what you just heard.
All right, let's push this further, because there's one comparison that puts the whole idea into perspective.
Actually, before that, here's a thought experiment that makes the same point in an even crazier way. And you've probably heard a version of it before without realizing it was about compound interest the whole time. Imagine someone offers you a choice. They'll either give you $1 million right now, today, or they'll give you a single penny today and then simply double it every day for 30 days. Most people, understandably, grab the $1 million because a penny sounds like nothing. But let's actually roll that penny downhill and see what happens. Day 1, you've got 1 cent. Day 2, 2 cents. By day 10, you've only got about $5.12, which honestly looks like a terrible deal compared to $1 million sitting right there. But keep rolling. By day 20, that penny has become over $5,000. Still less than the million, but suddenly it doesn't look so silly. Here's where it gets absurd. By day 30, that single penny, doubled every day, becomes over $5 million. More than 5 times the $1 million you would have taken on day 1. The snowball looked pathetic for weeks. Then, in the last handful of days, it exploded. Because doubling a big number adds way more than doubling a small one. That's compounding in its purest, most extreme form. And it's the exact same force that turned Mia's small monthly deposits into more money than Jake's much larger total contributions. Now let's push this further with a real comparison that puts the whole idea into perspective. Imagine 2 friends, both starting with $0, both saving the exact same amount every single month for their entire working life. The only difference between them is the age they start. One starts at 20, the other starts at 30. Just a 10-year gap. You'd think the 10-year head start would only be worth, maybe 10 years of extra deposits? A little more snow, a little bigger pile? But because of how compounding works, that 10-year head start, started early enough, can end up doubling the final amount, not just adding 10 years worth of contributions to it. Doubling from one single decade of head start. That's how powerful the early years of rolling actually are. And it's also exactly why so many financial experts sound almost annoyingly repetitive when they say, just start now, even with a small amount. They're not being lazy with their advice. They're telling you the single most important lever you actually have.
And if you want to see this same idea taken to an almost cartoonish extreme, look at Warren Buffett, one of the richest people who has ever lived. Buffett started investing seriously as a literal kid, buying his first stock at 11 years old. Here's the part that breaks people's brains. The overwhelming majority of his entire fortune, well over 90% of it by most estimates, was built after he turned 50. Not because he suddenly got smarter in his 50s, because his snowball, which had already been rolling for over 40 years by that point, had gotten so enormous that even a normal-sized roll down the hill added a mind-bending amount of snow. He didn't get rich by finding one magic investment. He got rich by starting insanely early and simply not stepping off the hill for over 70 years straight. So here's the question you're probably asking by now.
If time matters this much, does the amount of money even matter at all? Yes, it still matters, just not as much as people assume. Here's the honest way to think about the two variables working together. Time is the length of the hill. Amount is the size of the snowball you start with. A bigger starting snowball is good, but a longer hill given to a small snowball early beats a short hill given to a huge snowball late almost every single time. If you only have a small amount of money right now, that's genuinely fine, because the hill matters more than the size of what you're starting with. What actually hurts you isn't starting small, it's starting late. Now, let's make this practical, because understanding the idea doesn't help you if you don't know what to actually do with it. Think of it like a video game for a second, since that actually maps onto this really well. In a lot of games, your character starts weak, but every small win, every little bit of experience makes your next win a little easier, which gets you experience a little faster, which makes the win after that even easier still. Nobody expects to walk into a game and one-shot the final boss on day one. You expect slow progress at first that snowballs into something powerful much later, as long as you keep playing instead of quitting in the first 10 minutes because the early levels feel boring and slow. Investing works exactly the same way. The first few years of a compounding snowball look almost embarrassingly unimpressive, and that's exactly the part where most people quit, right before the interesting part even starts. First, it does not require a complicated account, a finance degree, or picking individual stocks. Most people build their compounding snowball through simple, boring, broad investment accounts. Retirement accounts, index funds, things that quietly track the growth of the economy as a whole, instead of trying to bet on one single company. You're not trying to find one perfect snowball. You're just trying to get any reasonably sized snowball rolling down a long hill as early as possible. Second, the amount you start with genuinely does not need to be big. $20 a month rolling for 40 years beats $200 a month rolling for only 10, almost every single time. Because remember, the hill matters more than the size of the snowball. If $20 a month sounds like a joke amount to start with, that's fine. It's still a snowball, and it's still rolling. And 30 or 40 years from now, it won't look like a joke at all. Third, and this is the one people skip the most, the biggest mistake isn't picking the wrong investment. It's waiting for the right time to start, which usually means waiting until you have more money, which usually means losing years you can never get back, which are exactly the years that matter the most. Remember Mia and Jake. Remember the penny that looked pathetic for 3 weeks straight before it exploded. The waiting itself is the expensive part, far more expensive than almost any other financial mistake you could make. Let's bring this back to Mia and Jake one final time, because their story has one more twist worth knowing. Jake, to his credit, eventually noticed what happened. He saw Mia's numbers, he ran his own, and he realized the 10 years he spent waiting weren't just 10 wasted years. They were the 10 most valuable years his money could have ever had, and they were already gone. He couldn't get them back. What he could do was make sure he never wasted another decade the same way again, and he told his own kids the exact story you just heard, years before they ever needed to hear it, because he figured out that the single most valuable financial gift he could give them wasn't money at all. It was 10 extra years of hill. That's really the whole lesson hiding inside Mia and Jake's story. Money mistakes are usually forgivable. You can earn more, save more, adjust your budget, fix almost anything given enough time. But time itself doesn't work that way. You can't unspend the years you didn't invest. You can't go back and give your snowball an earlier start. Every single year you wait is a permanent, unrecoverable subtraction from how big that snowball eventually gets to be.
which is exactly why the people who understand this idea the earliest tend to end up so far ahead of everyone else. Not because they were smarter or luckier, but because they simply gave their snowball more hill to roll down.
So if there's one single thing to walk away with from this video, it's this. The best day to start rolling your snowball downhill was years ago. The second best day is today. Not next year, not when you have more money, not when things settle down. Today, with whatever amount you actually have, even if it feels embarrassingly small. Because a small snowball with 30 years of hill in front of it will beat a huge snowball with only 5 years left, pretty much every single time.
If this video finally made compound interest click for you, do us a favor and subscribe, because we make videos exactly like this one every single week, taking confusing money ideas and making them make sense using nothing more complicated than a snowball on a hill. And next week, we're tackling something almost everyone gets completely backwards, whether it's smarter to pay off debt first or invest first. And the honest answer, once you run the actual math on it, surprised even us when we first looked into it. You genuinely won't want to miss it.